Before I built homes for people who'd been forgotten, I was the kid no one saw. Not at school, not at home. And when the world finally noticed me, the man who spent years pretending I didn't exist tried to destroy it all, anonymously. I used to think it was normal for your name to echo in your own house and never be answered. Our home sat near the wharf, nestled between salt-warped fences and lobster traps stacked like crooked teeth. It was the kind of place tourists passed on their way to prettier parts of Maine, the kind where stories rot before they're told. The house was blue, or had been once. The paint peeled in long ribbons from the siding like the place was trying to shed its skin. Out front, a crabapple tree hunched over the lawn, eternally bare. Mom always said it needed love to grow. Funny how everything in our yard had that same excuse. Inside lived 4 of us. Helena, my mom, who wore scrubs more than pajamas and seemed to sleep with one eye open. Mike, my stepfather, whose voice shook the walls but never once said my name like it mattered. Cole, my half-brother, who'd arrived 6 years after me but become the son we all revolved around. And me, Elias Rivera, the leftover from a previous life. I was still little, the first time I understood I was extra. Mike never yelled at me. Not once. I figured he must like me. But he never paid any attention to me. He gave all his attention to Cole. Even before Cole was born, Mike spoke like he was already here. He'd say things like, "Once the baby's here, we'll really be a family," while sitting across from me at dinner. I'd pause, mid-bite, waiting for him to notice how strange that sounded. Mom would smile tightly and pretend nothing happened. That was her superpower, pretending. I remember asking about my real dad once. I was 7. I had to build a family tree for class, and I didn't know what to put on the branch above me. Mom got quiet, then took a long sip from her coffee. "He was kind," she said, eyes flicking toward the hallway like she was afraid Mike might hear, even though he was at the garage. "And you have his eyes." That was it. No photos. No stories. Not even a name. Later that night, I asked Mike if he knew my dad. He didn't even look up from his beer. "He's not part of this family," he muttered. "Don't stir up what's already settled." Settled. That word stuck to me like seaweed on the docks. That year, I drew a picture of our house for art class. I used every crayon in the box, even blending the blues to get the faded siding just right. I added smoke curling from the chimney and the crabapple tree, even though it never bloomed, because I wanted it to feel hopeful. When I brought it home, I held it up to Mike like it was treasure. He glanced at it once and said nothing. Then he walked into the living room and turned on the game. I stood there holding my drawing until my arms hurt. Later, when Mom saw it taped to the fridge, she asked, "Did Mike see this?" I nodded. She didn't ask what he said. She just kissed the top of my head and whispered, "He's tired. Don't take it personally." When Cole was born, everything shifted, like the house tilted on its axis and I slid into the shadows. He had Mike's eyes. Mike said that every day. "Look at him. My little clone." He got a crib custom built by one of Mike's buddies. I had a mattress on the floor. He got bedtime stories. I got reminders to keep it down because the baby was sleeping. The funny thing is, I never hated Cole. He was just a baby. Later, when he learned to talk, he'd call me Lice instead of Elias, and everyone laughed like he was a comedian. When I corrected him, Mike snapped, "Let the boy have fun. Don't be so uptight." I learned early that speaking up made me the problem, so I stopped. Instead, I became background noise. I'd sketch for hours in the attic room Mike called your little nest. He only went up there once to fix a leak and never returned. I think he liked forgetting I existed. One winter, Cole caught pneumonia. It was scary. He was barely 3. I remember standing in the hallway, watching Mike pace and shout at doctors on the phone, demanding the best care. He cried when Cole got better. I saw it. Tears. I don't think I'd ever seen him cry before. A week later, I got a fever, 101.7. Mom left Tylenol on the counter and a note. "Drink water. Sorry, double shift." Mike walked past me that night without saying a word. Even when I coughed so hard I gagged, he didn't ask if I was okay. That's when I stopped leaving my drawings around the house. That's when I started folding them into paper boats and sending them out into the harbor behind the house, just to see if they might float somewhere someone would care. That's when I started becoming invisible. But here's the thing. Invisibility isn't emptiness. It's observation. It's memorizing the cracks in the ceiling and knowing which ones shift when it rains. It's becoming so quiet you start hearing things others miss, like your own heart saying, "You deserve more than this." I didn't know it yet, But that whisper was the beginning, the foundation beneath everything I would someday build. It's strange what a kid will do to be seen. When I was 9, I taped my report card to the fridge with neon green duct tape. I figured maybe if it was loud enough, if it screamed in color, someone would notice. Straight A's. Even in gym. I hated gym. But it stayed there for 3 days without comment, crooked, proud, invisible. On the 4th day, it disappeared. I found it later, shoved behind a stack of coupons in the junk drawer. Cole's latest crayon masterpiece, meanwhile, was laminated and pinned to the corkboard in Mike's garage. A scribbled sun with uneven legs and a face that looked like a scared tomato. Little guy's got talent, Mike said. Creative streak. Must get that from me. I stood there, silent, my fingers still flecked with ink from the comic panels I'd been drawing. Characters I invented. Whole worlds. But they lived in the attic with me, not on any walls downstairs. Mom meant well. That's the line I told myself for years. But she was tired in the bones kind of way. Her kindness came in the form of half-washed laundry and grocery store cookies she brought home at midnight. She'd ruffle my hair and call me her old soul, like I was some ghost child who had already lived too much. Sometimes I wondered if that's why she didn't fight harder for me, because part of her believed I didn't need it. Cole, though, needed everything. At 4, he was enrolled in a child gymnastics class because he had so much energy to burn. I wanted to join the community robotics club, near our school. It was free, Mrs. Marston ran it at the library. But Mike said it wasn't real exercise, and you already sit enough as it is. So I went anyway. Mrs. Marston didn't ask why I came alone. She just handed me a screwdriver and smiled. You've got a quiet brain, she said once, peering over my shoulder as I programmed our team's robot to follow a light path. That's a good kind of brain. Don't let anyone confuse volume for value. She became the first adult I didn't flinch around. I started going every Wednesday. I'd stay after, help clean up. She let me borrow books from her personal shelf, books on sustainable design, bridge engineering, even one about a guy who built an entire village out of recycled bottles. I read them in the attic under a desk lamp that buzzed like a fly. Sometimes I imagined a future where I'd design homes that healed. Homes with rooms that made you feel wanted the second you stepped inside. I didn't tell anyone about those dreams. It felt safer that way. One week, our elementary school held a family open house. Each classroom was decorated with projects, timelines, dioramas, poems stapled to cardboard. Mine was a cardboard blueprint of a solar-powered cabin I designed. It was 3 feet long, color-coded, with tiny hand-drawn furniture layouts. I waited by it all evening. Families came and went. Kids dragged parents over to show off their lava projects and family trees. Cole's class had a banner across the wall, Superhero Day. His construction paper cape hung in the center with the words, "My dad is my hero," written in glitter pen. Mike clapped him on the back and snapped a photo. They didn't visit my classroom. Not once. I walked home that night with Mrs. Marston, who had volunteered at the welcome desk. They must have been busy, I mumbled. She didn't reply. But when we got to her porch, she handed me a thermos of hot cocoa and said, "Some people only see what's lit by the spotlight. That doesn't mean the rest of the stage isn't important." At home, Mike was already asleep in his recliner. Cole was curled up on the couch, chocolate on his chin. Mom was scrubbing a pan in the sink. "Did you have fun?" she asked without turning around. I nodded. It was easier than saying no. Upstairs, I tore down the few sketches I'd taped to my attic wall, crumpled them, folded them into boats, snuck out the back door in socks. I crept down to the harbor and placed them on the water, one by one, watching as the tide stole them away. I pictured them finding their way to someone who'd pick them up and say, "Look at this. Somebody made this. Somebody cared." In the distance, Cole's laugh echoed through the window. Mike was awake again, playing some game with him. I walked back inside, the cold clinging to my bones. I didn't tape anything to the fridge after that. But I did keep building. Not for praise. Not even for hope. For survival. Because even paper boats carry weight when no one else is willing to. I was 11 the last time I asked Mike for anything. It wasn't even a big thing, not to me, anyway. There was a weekend program at the university an hour away, a free architecture workshop for kids who liked to build. Blueprints, structural integrity, even a field trip to a firm in Portland. Mrs. Marston handed me the flyer after Robotics one Wednesday. "You'd be perfect for this," she said. "Your mind doesn't just see buildings. It imagines lives inside them." I clutched that paper the whole walk home like it might evaporate. The next night at dinner, chicken patties and boxed mashed potatoes. I waited for a lull. Cole was showing Mike how he could hold his breath for 20 seconds. Helena had just sat down, already half asleep. "Hey," I said. "I found something I want to do." Mike didn't look up. "It's a workshop," I pressed on. "At the college. On architecture. Mrs. Marston said it's for kids who build. It's on Saturdays for a month, and—" "Architecture," he cut in, finally glancing at me. "What kind of kid wants to build houses on the weekend?" "I do," I said, trying to keep my voice even. Mike looked at Mom. "What did I tell you? Kid spends too much time with books. Should be outside getting scraped up like Cole here." He pointed at Cole's Band-Aid like it was a trophy. I thought. "Thought what, Elias?" he snapped. "That we got time to cart you around for some fantasy program? Jesus, do you even hear yourself?" Mom's fore paused midair. She didn't say anything. She never did. I shrank in my seat. My ears burned. I nodded and excused myself before anyone could see the tears. That night, I stared at the flyer in my room until the words blurred. Then I folded it and tucked it between the pages of a sketchbook. I didn't throw it out. I just buried it. Mrs. Marston asked me about it a week later. "They said no," I whispered. She didn't press, but she did start giving me extra reading. Let me sit longer at the library computer. Once, she showed me a set of real blueprints. Let me trace them with trembling fingers. She was the only one who treated my future like something solid. Mike treated it like a joke. Helena, she just pretended it wasn't happening. That was the year I started eating lunch in the back stairwell at school. Too many days of cold stares from the other kids. Too many, "You're weird," whispers when I brought in books on sustainable design or tried to explain why insulation mattered. At home, it wasn't much different. Mike's mechanic business started tanking that year. He came home angry more often, slamming drawers, shouting at Mom. Never at Cole. Never at me. Just loud enough that we both got the message. Cole started football that fall. Pee Wee League. His gear cost more than our grocery bill. He looked tiny in the pads, like a turtle learning to run. Mike took hundreds of photos. He made a Facebook album called Rivera Legacy Begins. I made a miniature bridge out of popsicle sticks that could hold 5 pounds. When I brought it down from the attic, Mike glanced up for half a second. "That's something," he said, already turning back to the game. Later that night, I took the bridge apart piece by piece. It was easier than pretending it mattered. The real fracture came 2 months later. I was supposed to give a presentation at school, our science unit on energy efficiency. I'd built a scale model of an eco-home using cardboard and salvaged tinfoil. It had windows that adjusted angles to catch light differently in summer versus winter. I stayed up for 3 nights making it. Mrs. Marston told me it was graduate-level thinking. I felt proud, nervous, alive. Parents were invited. I left a flyer on the fridge, highlighted the date in red, reminded them 3 times. The day came. I wore a button-up. Mom had ironed it for me, which felt like a miracle. But when I stepped up to present, the seats in the back were empty. I kept glancing at the door. Every time it creaked, my chest thudded. But it was never them. Afterward, Mrs. Marston hugged me and told me I lit up the whole room. But I went home, climbed to the attic, and laid on the floor with my back to the ceiling. I stayed that way until dinner. No one came to get me. Later, I overheard Mom in the kitchen. "I just forgot, Mike. You could have gone." "For a school model?" Mike scoffed. "Let the kid build his dreams. Doesn't mean we got a clap for every cardboard box he paints." I didn't cry, but I did go to the harbor the next morning and set the model adrift on a boogie board I'd salvaged from a yard sale. I watched it float, slowly tilting, until it sank. That was the last time I ever asked them to come to anything. That was the last time I asked to be seen. By 13, I had a better relationship with receipts than people. There was something satisfying about tracking every cent proof of existence. Proof that I was building something, even if no one noticed. I got my first job delivering newspapers before school. It meant waking up at 5, folding papers in the dark, and dragging a canvas bag that dug into my shoulder like a second spine. It also meant no one could say I wasn't pulling my weight. Mike didn't even notice at first. Just grunted one morning when he heard the front door close early. "If you're gonna sneak out, at least make coffee," he mumbled. I started making coffee out of spite. Cole, meanwhile, was becoming a local celebrity. By junior high, he had a Facebook fan page run by one of the football moms. Mike bragged that he'd be scouted by high school and already talked about Division I schools like it was a matter of time. We couldn't afford new tires for the car, but Cole got a custom helmet. I got the hand-me-down calculator from the junk drawer. At 14, I added tutoring to my income. I never told anyone how I got the job. One of the boys I helped with algebra tried to cheat off me during class. I reported it. He got caught. His mom, who also happened to be the PTA president, called the school furious. The principal smoothed things over by suggesting I tutor him. His mom agreed. She paid me under the table, $20 an hour. She also made the best banana bread I'd ever tasted and once told me, "You're going to be someone important, Elias." I held on to that like a secret. By 15, I had 3 steady students and a reputation. Quiet, reliable, no nonsense. At school, I was still invisible, but I was starting to prefer it that way. Cole got louder, not just in volume, but presence. He entered rooms like he owned the air inside them. Coaches loved him. Girls giggled at his locker. Mike started calling him the franchise. It wasn't a joke. One night, I heard them talking in the garage. "We're all in on you, bud," Mike said. "Everything we've got. You're going to put this family on the map." Cole laughed. "What about Elias?" Mike snorted. "He's fine, but you're the one that matters." It wasn't even cruel. That week, I stopped eating dinner at the table. I told them I had extra homework. No one argued. By 16, my bank account had just passed $4,000. That was supposed to be for books, moving expenses, application fees, everything Mike wouldn't cover. I started researching architecture programs. Took the SATs with money from my tutoring job. Every step I took toward the future felt stolen. Like I was robbing a version of myself they'd already dismissed. Mom's health dipped at fall. Her hands trembled. She started sleeping through alarms. The hospital cut her hours. That's when Mike said, "We'll have to dip into your savings, just for now." Not asked. Told. I said nothing. Just nodded. Because by then, I already knew how this worked. Cole's private training didn't pause. His travel team fees got paid. My balance dropped by $1,500 in 1 month. Mike called it a family need. I started withdrawing in silence, physically, emotionally, spiritually. I'd sit on the roof outside my attic window, sketching designs in the dark with a flashlight between my teeth. Floor plans. Open concepts. Homes where every kid had a room with a lock that wasn't just for keeping things out, but for keeping self-worth in. Some nights, I dreamed of building a house just for me. Not big. Not flashy. Just mine. I never fantasized about revenge. I wasn't wired like that. But I did imagine a future where no one could take anything from me without asking. Where love wasn't rationed like scraps. Where good job wasn't a currency reserved for the loudest. I didn't know how long it would take or how hard it would be. But I knew this. I was getting out. And I'd build my way there, one silent dollar at a time. I still have the envelope. Not because I'm sentimental, at least, not in the way people think. But because it was the first time something in the world officially said, "You matter. You are wanted. You belong." It came in March of my senior year, thick and cream-colored, with the University of Massachusetts Amherst seal pressed into the upper left corner. I didn't open it right away. I just stared at it on the kitchen counter while the house buzzed around me. Mike was swearing at the faucet again. Mom was napping. Cole was in the backyard, yelling into a phone about scholarships and 40-yard dashes. No one asked about the envelope. No one even noticed it wasn't junk. So I took it upstairs to the attic, the only place that had ever really felt like mine. I held my breath as I slid my finger under the flap, careful not to rip it. The words blurred the first time I read them. "We are pleased to offer you admission." I read it again. And again. I traced the word congratulations with my finger like it was something sacred. Then I folded the letter back up, set it gently on my desk, and cried harder than I had in years. Not from joy. Not exactly. But from a bone-deep exhaustion. From the ache of doing it all alone. From the realization that I had made it, and not one person in my house even knew. I told Mrs. Marston first. She was the one who mattered. She hugged me so tightly I couldn't breathe. Then she handed me a manila folder filled with resources. Scholarships. Dorm checklists. A contact at the university she used to work with. "You're not just going," she said. "You're going prepared." I asked her if she thought I could afford it. Her answer changed everything. "My sister has an apartment near campus. She's moving in with her partner and doesn't want to rent it out yet. She said you can stay there. Rent-free. First semester." I didn't know what to say. "She read your scholarship essay," Mrs. Marston added, smiling. "She believes in you." It was the first time I felt something crack open. Not pain, but possibility. I told Mike and Mom the next day. Mike didn't even look up from his email. "Architecture, right? Well, that's something. Maybe you'll finally build us a new porch." Mom gave a tired smile. That's good, Elias. Maybe you can get a loan. I stood there waiting for more. A hug. A nod. A single goddamn moment of pride. But Cole walked in right then, waving a flyer about a summer football camp in Georgia. I got invited, he shouted. It's elite. Scouts go to this one. Mike jumped up like he'd been electrocuted. No way. Bud, that's huge. And just like that, I was invisible again. Later that week, I was making eggs when I overheard them in the living room. I mean, he's always been a little different, Mike said. Quiet. You think he can handle college alone? He's not a kid anymore, Mom said. He got himself this far. Yeah, well, let's hope he figures it out. Hope. That was all they were offering. So I stopped asking them for anything. Instead, I leaned harder into my plans. I accepted the university's offer, applied for every scholarship under the sun, set up a weekend job at a coffee shop by campus, started planning what to pack. One afternoon, Mrs. Marston drove me to the bus station to get my orientation papers. Before I got out, she handed me a small envelope. Inside was a key. To the apartment, she said. You deserve a place that opens for you. I held that key in my hand like it was a medal. That night, I sat on the attic floor and sketched a house. One room, slanted roof, big windows. No locks on the doors because no one needed to sneak away. At the top of the page, I wrote, one day, I'll build this for someone who needs it. Then I folded the page in half and packed it between my socks. I wasn't just leaving. I was beginning. The first night alone in that apartment, I sat on the floor for over an hour, just listening to the silence. Just quiet. It smelled like dust and something old, but it was mine. The couch sagged, the kitchen faucet leaked, and there were 3 dead outlets in the living room. But none of that mattered. Because this space, for the first time in my life, wasn't holding anyone's expectations. It was a room with no echo. I slept on a donated twin mattress and stacked textbooks on the floor to make a nightstand. My desk was a folding table from the Salvation Army and a chair I found near a dumpster. But I had a key, a lock, a place where I could leave and return and no one would sigh at the sound of me. Classes started fast and hard. Architecture school wasn't for the lazy or the unprepared. Every week brought another model, another critique, another stretch of exhaustion. Most nights, I was awake until 3 a.m., tracing blueprints with ink-stained fingers and shaky hands. But it wasn't the kind of tired I'd known before. This was purpose-tired. A burn that meant I was going somewhere. I didn't make friends right away. Everyone else seemed to move in packs, talking in fast bursts, throwing references I didn't recognize. I kept my head down, again, and hoped that keeping quiet would be enough to survive. But then I met Lena. She was chaos in the shape of a person. Short red hair, paint always on her sleeves, a wardrobe like a box of crayons exploded. She sat next to me during a mandatory workshop on sustainable design and asked, "Are you the guy who drew the solar house on the 3rd floor? That was yours, right?" I nodded, a little confused. She grinned. It's bold. Not loud. But it says something. We were friends after that. I didn't choose it, it just happened. Lena operated like a storm, pulling people in, tossing them around, making them better just by proximity. She dragged me to gallery shows and open mic nights, critiqued my work with brutal honesty, insisted I submit my portfolio to the student exhibition, even when I told her it wasn't good enough. Who told you that? She asked. Them? Or you? That question stayed with me. She was the first peer who saw my work and didn't just say it was good. She treated it like it mattered. Like I mattered. With Lena around, my world got bigger. I met other students who didn't come from much, who also worked part-time jobs and skipped meals and lived in old apartments with bad wiring. People who understood what it meant to grind, not glide. I started letting them in, just a little. I shared my online portfolio. I stayed after critique to help clean up. I said yes when someone offered to split the cost of materials. Small things. But they chipped away at the walls I built around myself. Then came the moment that would change everything. It was late spring of sophomore year when Professor Delgado called me into his office. I thought I was in trouble. He pushed his glasses up and said, "You ever hear of the National Architecture Futures Challenge?" I hadn't. "It's competitive," he said. Understatement. National entries, 3 rounds, final panel in Boston. "But you have a voice, Rivera. Your last modular housing project? That wasn't just design. That was vision. You should apply." I just stared at him. I wasn't used to compliments, especially not ones that sounded like belief. He handed me the brochure. You've got 2 months. Don't waste them. That night, I sat in my half-lit apartment and read every word on that application. I thought about every model I'd built, every blueprint I'd sketched in the attic, every time I made something just to feel like I existed. And then I opened a new folder, sharpened my pencil, and began again. This wasn't just a contest. It was a doorway. And I wasn't going to knock. I was going to build the damn thing myself. Some nights in architecture school, it feels like you're building the world from scratch and praying the glue holds. I worked on my submission for the National Architecture Futures Challenge like it was oxygen. Every free hour outside class, every break at the coffee shop, every weekend, I poured into it. I wasn't just designing. I was bleeding something out of myself onto that foam board. The concept was close to my heart. Modular eco-housing for displaced families. I modeled it after homes I imagined back when mom started getting sick, small, flexible spaces that could shift with need. Solar grids, recycled materials, a structure designed to feel like dignity, not donation. Lena called it quietly radical. Professor Delgado pushed me harder than anyone ever had. He didn't hold my hand. He handed me critiques like sandpaper. "This doesn't breathe," he said once, slapping the side of my cardboard prototype. "You made a coffin. Start over." I did. 3 times. Some nights, I forgot to eat. Others, I didn't sleep. There were mornings I couldn't tell if my hands were shaking from caffeine or panic. But I kept going. Because this wasn't just a competition. It was proof that I belonged, that I mattered, that I was more than what Mike thought I was. When I finally finished the physical model, I packed it in a plastic crate with enough bubble wrap to shield a bomb. I booked my bus ticket to Boston a month in advance. Delgado wrote my recommendation letter. Lena promised to come with me for moral support. "I want to see you break something open," she said. I didn't know she meant it literally. We arrived the day before the final round. Boston looked unreal, sleek buildings, polished sidewalks, people in tailored coats with places to be. My hands were sweating before I even stepped into the competition venue. A repurposed factory building turned into an innovation center near Back Bay. 3 flights of stairs. No elevator. Because, of course, I carried the model like it was a newborn. Each step creaked. Every corner felt like a hazard. And then, just as we reached the top, a janitor rounded the corner too fast and clipped the edge of my crate with his mop bucket. The model toppled. I watched it fall in slow motion. Foam board split. Balsa wood cracked. A month of work collapsed into jagged mess at my feet. The janitor stammered apologies, but I couldn't hear them. My brain had gone cold. Everything inside me just stilled. I sank to my knees, staring at the ruin. It wasn't just a model. It was everything I'd clawed toward. Every hour, every insult survived. Every time I swallowed disappointment instead of screaming. Gone. Then Lena knelt beside me. "We can fix it," she said. "You didn't get this far just to stop now." We hauled the pieces back to the hotel. Stayed up all night. Hot glue. Ruler. Tweezers. Tears. She cinched her wrist. I redrew every missing line by hand. At 3 a.m., my vision blurred. At 4 o'clock, we stopped talking and just worked. By morning, the model looked rough. But it stood. At the final presentation, I didn't read my prepared notes. I couldn't. I spoke from the exhaustion in my bones. I talked about rebuilding. About homes and people and what it means to hold your life together with trembling hands. About how structures can be fragile, but so can people, and that doesn't make them failures. The judges were silent. Lena gave me a thumbs up from the back. We left without knowing the results. We collapsed into our beds at noon and didn't wake up until evening. 2 days later, the email came. I'd won. Not just finalist. Winner. Grant money. Mentorship. National article. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I looked at the busted model, still sitting on the table across the room, battle-scarred and crooked and alive. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I whispered, "We did it," because Lena was asleep in the next bed. But I said it loud enough for the room to hear. Because that room didn't echo anymore. It held things now, including me. The article dropped 2 weeks after the win. A full-page spread in Next.From magazine titled, "Resilient Design, How Quiet Mind Reimagined Shelter." It had my photo, head tilted, half smile, charcoal smudges still under my nails, and a quote about dignity through structure. I'd rewritten that quote 6 times. I didn't expect the internet to care. I certainly didn't expect my name to trend. But it did. And then it got ugly. 3 days after the article, a post appeared on social media. Funny how this original design looks just like the KNA project in Belgium from 2017. Attached was a photo, fuzzy, taken from a distance of a vaguely similar modular setup. The comments multiplied fast. Looks copied to me. Yet another nobody stealing from European architects. Imagine getting famous for plagiarism. I couldn't breathe. I scrolled until my hands hurt. I read every accusation. I read strangers calling me a fraud, a thief, a grifter. Some used my full name. I didn't sleep that night, or the one after. The university launched a formal investigation. Delgado pulled every file from my submissions, timestamps, drafts, sketches, emails. He stood by me the whole time, stone-faced and relentless. This isn't about the truth, he told me. This is about who yells loudest online. I wanted to disappear. Lena made me soup and shut off my Wi-Fi. Let it burn out, she said. It always does. 3 weeks later, the university cleared me. Completely. No overlap. No stolen design. My concepts were documented, timestamped, and uniquely mine. And then, days later, Delgado pulled me aside. The anonymous report, he said. We traced the IP. He hesitated. It came from someone in your hometown. A man named Mike Thompson. I didn't need a moment to place the name. My stepfather. Of course it was him. After everything. After the article, the expo, the speech that made people look at me, and at him, differently. After Cole's injuries ended his football trajectory for good. Mike had poured everything into his golden child, and now that dream was gone. No scholarships. No scouts. No spotlight. He couldn't stomach the fact that I, quiet, forgettable Elias, had succeeded where his own son couldn't even continue. That I had stepped out of the attic and into the world without him. So he did what small men do when they feel cornered. He tried to destroy it all. Quietly. Anonymously. Like a final slap without a name attached. Then a statement was posted. Brief. Clinical. It said I was exonerated. But it didn't matter. The damage lingered. The doubt. The feeling of being seen for the first time and immediately being questioned. That's when my mom called. I saw the article, she said. Her voice was thin, hesitant. And the other thing. I'm glad it wasn't true. That was all. No congratulations. No apology for the years of silence. I'm speaking at graduation, I said, mostly to fill the space. I'll try to be there. It didn't sound like a promise. Graduation came fast. I wore robes that felt too big and a cap that kept slipping over my eyes. As I stood at the podium, the speech I'd written felt hollow. So I didn't read it. I talked about that night in the hotel in Boston. About glue and panic and trying anyway. I said, we are told that what breaks is useless. That failure means we're not worthy. But some things break so they can be rebuilt stronger. You are not what breaks. You are what survives it. Then I looked out into the crowd. And I said, you are not invisible. Even if they only showed up when the clapping started. The room stood. A few people teared up. I walked off stage lightheaded, half wondering if I'd gone too far. The first letter came 2 weeks after graduation. Not from my mom. From Mike. It was printed, not handwritten, as if formality could disguise familiarity. He never said, Dear Elias. Just, you've made a name now. That's good. Since you're doing well, maybe you can help your mother and Cole. Things aren't easy here. We all have to pull our weight. No congratulations. No mention of the speech, or the article, or the years of silence. Just an ask, wrapped in entitlement. I read it once, then again. I didn't respond. I couldn't, because the audacity was so clean it almost gleamed. A few days later, a voicemail from my mother. Her voice was raw in places. Unsteady. Mike's been drinking more, she said. He lost another contract. Cole's not himself. I know we weren't the best to you. But if there's any way. She trailed off. Didn't finish the sentence. That if hung there, part guilt, part hope, part manipulation. I didn't call back. Instead, I walked to my new place, a small condo near the river I'd managed to put a down payment on with the competition grant and my savings. I hung one of my oldest sketches on the wall, the first modular home concept I'd drawn at 18, folded and worn from years of travel. I stood in front of it for a long time. Then I sat down at my desk and drafted a letter, not to Mike, not to Cole, to my mom. I told her I remembered every time she told me to keep my head down. I told her I remembered every silence, every time she looked the other way. But I also told her this. I don't hate you. I just had to stop carrying your regrets. I had to build something that didn't need your permission to stand. I mailed it the next day. No return address. Success doesn't always knock. Sometimes it barges in when you're not ready, dragging everything you tried to outrun with it. It started with a phone call from Grace, my boss at the design firm. "There's a spot open on the Foundations of the Future panel at the Northeast Design Expo," she said. The person they booked dropped. "It's a televised segment. You'd be sitting next to Julian Hart." Julian Hart, the award-winning architect who turned shipping containers into luxury vacation homes. I'd studied his blueprints for years. "I'm not ready for that," I said. Grace's voice cut clean. "You've been ready. The question is, are you done hiding?" So I said yes. The expo was the biggest event of the year, live-streamed, attended by every firm with a budget. Lena took the train up to help me pick an outfit. "We're going tailored," she said, dragging me into a second-hand boutique that smelled like ambition and old Chanel. "Can you believe this?" I whispered, holding up the official itinerary. My name was right there, sandwiched between Julian Hart and a Yale professor who'd once dismissed my work as idealistic. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. 2 days before the panel, I got a text from an unknown number. "Saw you're speaking at the expo. Congrats. We're coming to support. Mom and Cole." Not "can we come?" Not "would you like us there?" Just "we're coming." As if the years of absence had a backdoor clause. As if success meant re-entry. I didn't respond. Lena saw my face. "Don't let them hijack this," she said. "This moment is yours." I thought I could compartmentalize it. I was wrong. The morning of the panel, I walked into the green room and froze. Cole was there. He'd grown broader, with the kind of face that still expected rooms to bend around him. But his eyes? They looked tired. "Hey," he said. "Didn't think you'd actually do it." "Do what?" "All of this." He gestured to the venue badge around my neck. "Be someone." I stared at him. "Why are you here?" He fumbled with his jacket zipper. "Mom wanted to see you speak." "Mike didn't come." He said. Well, he didn't say much. That part didn't surprise me. But what did? Was what Cole said next. "You remember that model you built in middle school? The one with the tinfoil windows?" My throat tightened. "I found it," he said. "In the attic. Stuffed in an old box." I brought it. He pulled it out of his backpack. Crushed in one corner, faded, but unmistakably mine. "I wanted to show you I didn't forget everything." I should have felt something. Gratitude, closure, whatever. But all I could think was, why now? Before I could answer, the stage manager called us. The panel opened with applause. Hart spoke first, slick, rehearsed, polished. The Yale professor waxed poetic about designing for the elite with empathy. I barely heard them. My fingers were numb. Then it was my turn. I spoke about modular housing, about building dignity into design, about growing up in spaces where the walls remembered every silence. And then, I did something I hadn't planned. I pulled out the faded model Cole had given me. "I built this when I was 11, I said. "It sat in an attic for over a decade. No one asked about it. No one came to see it. But I kept building anyway. Because even when you're invisible, you can still imagine a place where you matter." There was a pause. Then thunderous applause. Later, after the segment aired, my phone exploded. Mentions. Messages. Job offers. Interview requests. I was trending again, but this time for the right reasons. But so was something else. A photo of me on stage, holding the model, with Cole in the background. The internet did what it does. Found him. His sports career. His injuries. Then the quote from my speech. People started drawing comparisons. Imagine being the golden child and realizing your quiet brother just rewrote the family legacy. It went viral. 3 days later, Mike called me. His voice was slurred. "So now you're a big shot, huh? Making speeches. Making us look like assholes on national TV. You did that yourself?" I said calmly. "You ungrateful little." I hung up. 10 minutes later, I got a text from Mom. "He's angry. But he's hurting too. Can't you just talk to him?" I didn't reply. Instead, I posted a photo of the model to my feed. No caption. The comments filled with stories from kids like me. People who were never the favorite. Who weren't seen until they made the world look. That night, I lay awake, the expo badge still on my dresser. Not because of the moment, because I knew what was coming next. Recognition is a flood, and floods expose everything. Fame doesn't heal wounds. It just makes the scar visible to everyone else. After the expo, I didn't go a day without some kind of offer. Consulting gigs, speaking requests. A design podcast wanted a 3-part series on my life. Someone even reached out about turning my modular housing concept into a feature at the Smithsonian's Urban Futures exhibit. The firm tripled its funding in 1 quarter. Grace gave me my own team. Lena threw a party, dragged me into the middle of it, and said, "You're officially too big for your trauma to carry alone now. We're all here to hold it." I laughed. I almost believed it. But back home, the story was different. Cole called again. This time he sounded wired. Nervous. "They're talking about you here," he said. "Everywhere. School boards. News. Even the old librarian asked if I was your brother." There was silence on the line. "Dad's not handling it well." "He's not my dad." "Right." He exhaled. "Right. He's drinking more." "Keeps saying you're making him look bad." "Mom's trying, but..." "But what?" "But it wasn't my problem anymore." Then he said, "He wants to sell the house." That made me pause. "What?" "Says he can't live under a roof you outgrew. Says if you're going to be the family name now, maybe you can help settle some debts." I nearly dropped the phone. The next day, a letter arrived. This time it was certified. Mike had sent me a formal request for a family investment opportunity. He'd attached a typed proposal, full of bad grammar and worse math, asking for $42,000 to fix the foundation, renovate the porch, and invest in a local sports recovery clinic. In return, I'd own 40% of future property value. I stared at it for a long time, then laughed, sharp and humorless. I sent it back with a single sticky note. "You already spent the part that was mine." He responded the only way a man like him knows how, with rage. He went online. He started posting passive-aggressive comments on my articles, calling me a liar, saying I'd abandoned the people who raised me, said I stole ideas, that I owed my success to a roof I didn't pay for and dinners I never said thank you for. And people saw it. Not everyone believed him. Most didn't. But the ones who wanted to, they amplified it. One night, I got a DM from a podcast producer. "Would you be willing to respond to your stepfather's allegations in a bonus segment?" I deleted it, but the message had already spread. Some called me brave. Others called me a fraud who cut off the family that fed him. That's when I realized this wasn't about the truth. It was about narrative, and Mike wanted control back. So I gave him the one thing he never expected: visibility. I wrote an op-ed titled, "When Family is the First Structure You Have to Dismantle." It wasn't cruel. It wasn't emotional revenge. It was blueprints, facts, receipts, silence that lasted years, missed events, withheld support, quotes from my own college loan paperwork where my mother's income had been listed but never contributed. I ended it with this. I built something, not out of spite, out of survival, and I'm not ashamed of where I came from, but I won't apologize for outgrowing it. The piece went viral again, but this time, something shifted. Other people shared their stories. Quiet kids, estranged sons, daughters who got left behind, survivors who built not to get rich, but to get free. Mike stopped posting after that, and when a tabloid blog reached out asking for an exclusive family tell-all, I told them, the story isn't who didn't show up. It's what I built while they didn't. They say revenge is best served cold. But the truth? I didn't want revenge. I wanted proof, physical, tangible, irreversible, that I had built something they couldn't touch. That's what the house became. Not a project, not a shelter, a symbol. It started as a concept pitch to the city council, a community hub with 6 modular eco-homes built around a shared courtyard, designed for youth aging out of the foster system. Solar-powered, adaptable rooms, 0 rent for the first year, a safe beginning. The council approved it after months of negotiation. Grace matched the funding. A nonprofit joined in. I didn't even have time to think about the weight of it until the day the foundation was poured. I stood there in a hard hat, blueprint in one hand, phone buzzing in the other. That morning, I'd received a message from someone I hadn't heard from in years. "Mrs. Marston." Not an email, a letter. "I saw what you're doing, Elias. I always knew you'd create more than buildings. You're making places for people to heal. That's architecture. That's legacy." I cried reading it. Right there, next to the cement truck, while subcontractors yelled measurements and the sun beat down. Because she was the first person who ever looked at my future and didn't flinch. The houses took 10 months to build. I was on site almost every day. I hired apprentices from trade schools, brought in college interns, let a former foster kid co-design the interior layouts. And when it was done, we held a launch ceremony. Media showed up. Donors, city reps, local press. And standing quietly at the back? My mother. No Mike. Just her. She looked thinner, tired, but clearer somehow, like something in her had unraveled. After the speeches, she approached me near the garden beds. "I read your op-ed," she said. "I wanted to be angry, but I couldn't be." I said nothing. She looked around the homes. "This is beyond anything I imagined." "You didn't imagine much," I said, not cruelly. "Just fact." She nodded. "You're right. I didn't know how to protect you. I didn't know how to stop him from deciding who mattered. That was your job." "I know." We stood in silence. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out something wrapped in tissue. "I found this," she said. "I thought it was lost. It was my middle school eco-home model. The original. The one I thought I'd sent out to sea. I saved it," she said softly. "I don't know why. I took it. It was brittle, parts missing, but it still stood." "I'm not asking for anything," she said. "I just wanted you to know. I see you now." She left without asking for a photo, or a tour, or money. I watched her go, and for once, I didn't feel anger, just space. A year after, a teenager walked into my office with a bruised duffel bag and a sketchbook held like a shield. His name was Rowan, 17, aging out of the system in 2 months. The shelter had recommended him for our mentorship program. He sat across from me, silent for a full minute. Then he said, "I don't expect you to care. I just want to learn to build things." I looked at him and saw myself. The tension, the expectation of being discarded, the hard shell wrapped around soft genius. So I handed him a pencil and pointed to the drafting table. "No rules. Just show me what's in your head." He stayed until night. Rowan became our first full-ride apprentice. He now co-teaches design workshops to kids from shelters every Thursday. One of his sketches hangs next to mine in the lobby of the Marston House. I don't need to be seen anymore, but I do need to make sure kids like him are. Since the expo, things moved faster than I expected. TED Talk, fellowship, a consulting gig with the UN on sustainable post-crisis housing. I've been in magazines. I've had dinner with senators. My name has been said in rooms I never imagined entering. But the proudest moment? The day we broke ground on the Rivera Commons, a permanent housing village for displaced plus youth, funded entirely through donations from supporters who read my story. That day, I got a letter, handwritten, from Mom. She said she watches every talk, cuts out every article, keeps them in a shoebox. "I don't deserve to be proud," she wrote, "but I am." I didn't cry, but I sat with that letter for a long time. Then I filed it, not out of sentiment, but out of respect for the boy I was. The one who needed someone to say you were right to leave. Mike never reached out again. I don't visit the old town, but last I heard, the house was sold. A new family lives there. They painted it yellow. Good. Let it be something else. Because here's the truth. You don't always get justice in words or revenge in applause. Sometimes, justice is a foundation that holds. A door that locks from the inside, not to keep people out, but to let someone feel safe enough to stay. Sometimes, justice is standing in a room full of lights, holding a version of yourself no one clapped for, and saying, "Look what I built anyway." I was never the favorite, but I became something permanent. I became my own architect. And now, I build for the ones still sketching in silence.